Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at race number 11 at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 2 $2 million turf sprint. We're going 3/4 of a mile on the lawn. Cogburn just broke what? The world record, going 5.5 furlongs at Saratoga. But now he's got to stretch out a little bit over a completely different turf course, and he's going to be facing last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, No Balls, who was able to get a prep race last time out and should be much tighter for this.
Yeah, you'd think this maybe they could give Cogburn a run for his money. I mean, listen, I think it's pretty obvious that if he runs either of his last two races, maybe that Cogburn's just going to win here. The question is, will he do it at Kentucky Downs? Of course, you will have to take a short price.
Cogburn is quick. We'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector. He is expected to be up and on the lead. I'm not sure he absolutely needs the lead. Coppola, the number 6, is quick. No Balls can sit off the lead or go. The pace is expected to be fast. I'm curious to see exactly how fast they go.
Yeah, me too, because I agree with your take on both Cogburn and No Balls. I mean, I don't really feel like either one of them is going to be on a mission here to make the lead. Make no mistake about it, Cogburn's a fast horse, but he's very comfortable tracking off of the lead.
If this pace melts down, keep an eye on the long, striding Witty, the number 11, with the LP flag over his chiclet. That indicates he has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating. We're going to kick things off with the number 1 Gear Jockey. Gear Jockey is listed at 30-1 on the morning line. I think if you get 30-1, you're supposed to take Gear Jockey simply because he's raced twice at Kentucky Downs in the past, both in this race, and he's won it both times. He is a specialist. He won this race in 2021. He won this race in 2023. Now he's got to deal with a really long layoff. Something tells me Rusty Arnold, though, has been prepping for this all along.
Yeah, you feel like this, based on his two other starts here, you feel like this is the race that they were pointing for with a big purse involved. I mean, I don't think it's that hard. I mean, he's run some good races anyway, Dan, at other places, but I don't think it's that hard to go through these running lines and say the two best races of his life are the 2 wins in this race in his career. I mean, he ran huge both times.
Axthelm is the number 2, and whether he runs in this race or not, we're still up in the air. He'd be wheeling back on only 6 days rest after this victory and a high-level allowance. His first start off a short layoff for Saffie Joseph, and he just got a really nice ride from Edgard Zayas. As you see, they didn't go fast. Almost 23 seconds to the opening quarter. Axthelm is challenged. He digs in gamely to win. The pace scenario is going to be a lot faster this time. The good news is he has shown the versatility to win from off it.
Yeah, exactly. That's good news for him. The other guy, I mean, I do expect him to just wheel back and run in this race, Dan, because he's one of the horses, another one of the horses who's proven that he really likes this turf course here. Sometimes that's half the battle. I don't think he's as good as several horses in this field, but he likes Kentucky Downs.
So does One Timer, the number 3, who was only beaten ahead as the favorite in this race last year. I think this guy's always been a little bit underrated, and now he's got 2 starts under his belt in 2024, including this race. His most recent start last week in an allowance race. He gets wired. He tries hard to run second. He has to prove he's back to the form he was in 2023, but it's worth noting he won his 3rd start of the form cycle last year with a career-best 104 buyer.
He's a real good horse, quality turf sprinter for sure. He has no excuse not to win this race that we're watching right here. Then he had every chance to get by, and he couldn't quite do it. But he's another horse who's run really well here in the past, and that's always a good thing. I love his tactical speed. He always shows up. I mean, he's not hard to make a case for, and he's probably going to be a fair price in here.
Now, Cogburn has won 5 of 6 turf starts. The only loss came at Kentucky Downs. Now, he did lose by less than a length. I thought he had a pretty good trip that day, was in between horses at the end, and he was trying hard. In the Jaipur last time out, he was just super. He actually bobbled at the start, recovered enough to get right to the lead, put away his pace foe, and then just moves on to beat 3 next out winners. This is a tremendous performance with a 111 buyer, but it's a completely different track and distance here.
Right, and I mean, you just have to keep that in mind. Again, if he runs this race that we're watching right now, the Jaipur, or if he runs his race from a Derby day in this spot, he probably just wins this race, Dan. But you're going to be asked to take a really short price, and you've already pointed out he ran here last year, and I don't know, maybe others will have a different opinion. He had a good trip in that race. Yeah. He had no excuse. He just didn't kick as hard at Kentucky Downs as he did at Saratoga or Churchill.
Charcoal is up next, and he won the prep for this at Ellis Park, going 5.5 furlongs from off of the pace. He got a setup that day. They went fast, 21, 43 and change. He's going to get another setup here. I'd like to see him do it again, but I won't argue with anyone who thinks he's going to be 30-1, and he's sharp.
Yeah, I won't argue with that either. I didn't really want him out of that prep race for this, though. That was a race that was run at a pretty solid
Yes.
pace, and it did come apart a little bit at the end. This horse had a clean run into it, and he pulled off the upset. If he wins here, it would be an even bigger upset.
Coppola was part of that pace, and he ran very, very well to finish in a dead heat for third. While the winner, Charcoal, came from off of it, he was dueling on the front, made the lead in the stretch, and just was outfinished. I'm curious to see if he's as good at 6 as he is perhaps at 5.5 or 5, but I wonder if Corey Lanery's just going to try to put the heat on the favorite early with this guy.
I wonder how they'll elect to ride him. I agree with you. I think he is the horse to maybe take out of that prep race if you're going to take one of those horses out of the preview turf sprint. And it's not like his prior, turf sprint form is bad. He's done it on the lead. He's done it without the lead. He's running against Cogburn a couple of times. It's not like he was totally embarrassed by that horse. There were things to like about this horse, I thought.
Groom's All Business is a very dangerous closer. Jorge Duarte has done a very nice job with this horse. He gave him plenty of time, brought him back as a new gelding, reeled off stakes wins at Pimlico and Monmouth, and then last time out they ran him at Parks in the Parks Dash. And as you can see, this turf course, which, turf race has been abandoned at Parks since this race, it may not be the kindest for some horses, and Groom's All Business did his best to rally for third.
Yeah, one of those turf courses that I think when horses run poorly there, you want to take it with a grain of salt. And I would also point out Groom's All Business also ran there last year or 2 years ago, and he didn't run that well. His surrounding races are way better than that one. So I was willing to give him the excuse. I would also just point out, Dan, that Groom's All Business, they tried to run this horse twice at Saratoga, and he got rained off both times. And I just feel like that Parks Dash was like plan C for this horse. They ran him there. Now they're here for a big purse. This horse has come back in really good form as a 5-year-old. His first 2 starts this year, I don't know if you want to add anything to this. I thought he was super both times.
His Pimlico race was exceptional because it looked
Yeah.
like Whitty was going to go right by him, and he was in behind horses once he got into the clear. He really kicks. He handles all footing. We'll see how he handles Kentucky Downs. Dylan Davis, who had a career meet at Saratoga, takes the mount. The 8 is Kadem. This guy is a Group 1 winner on 2 occasions at 6 furlongs, winning the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee both in 2023 and 2024. The problem is his 2 most recent races have simply not been very good.
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, he's a very interesting horse because he's got the 2 Group 1s. If you go back further, he's got a bunch of other group wins. I mean, he's a rock solid European turf sprinter. I just sort of always expect these horses to handle Kentucky Downs when they ship over here. I mean, I'm not going to knock this. His last 2 races aren't good, but I'm not going to knock him. I'm also probably not taking the 7-2 more in line on him.
2 of the horses that he faced last time out in France in that Group 1 returned to place in Group 3 competition. Noble Reflection is the number 9. His last race, I think, is just another throwout. They ran him in the Wicker at Del Mar, going a mile in his first race off a 9-month layoff. And there was just this ridiculous speed duel up front where 2 long shots went at it, one of them being Noble Reflection, and they both paid the price.
That's true. I don't really love his running style for this race, though, Dan. He does feel like a horse who's at his best when he can get to the front and be part of the pace. And I just don't see that happening for him here. And it's also worth noting that they ran him in this race last year, and he was nowhere.
He was 4th after setting, not 4th, he was nowhere, you're right, that day. The 4th place finisher of his last start did come back to win at Del Mar with a 100 Beyer speed figure. The 10 is No Balls, last year's Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner, a horse that rallied from off the pace that day and looked good doing so. He has only had 1 run this year. It was at Saratoga. He was wired that day against a good horse. The runner-up coming back to place in the Harvey Pack last week with a 99 Beyer. This guy at 6-1 is a very fair price because he's tactical enough to just park himself outside and in the clear off of the early leaders.
I agree. He was awful good sprinting on the turf last year, too. So we'll see if he can get back to that kind of a form. I think, Larry Ravelli was, pretty open going into that Saratoga race that they were using it as a prep to get him here. And he's here now, and his good race makes them super tough.
Whitty's half-sister, Caravel, won the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and he's just been a very likable horse, mostly based in the Mid-Atlantic region for Lizzie Merriman. He's good on dirt. He's good on turf. He's a big, strong horse, and I think 6.5 at Kentucky Downs might actually work well for him. He rallied for second last time out at Colonial, but he's the kind of horse that sometimes the ground breaks away from him at the start, and he leaves himself with work to do. With this sort of pace scenario, that could be good for him.
I thought that made him a little interesting. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that if everybody shows up here, he's going to have to run the race of his life to win, but he's going to be a big price. And I do expect to see him, sort of trying to mount a late run into this race. This horse, he's a little underrated.
Mustache, the number 12, is a horse that's coming out of that prep race at Ellis Park, the one with the fast pace. And I think we talked about it already, that maybe Coppola is the horse to take out of that race because he was part of that pace, still fighting at the end, while the winner Charcoal and Mo Stash, who dead heated with Coppola, they were coming from off of the pace. Any excuses?
I didn't think so. I just thought he just wasn't quite good enough, couldn't take advantage of that big pace in front of him. Not that he ran poorly, though, Dan. I mean, this horse is another one. He's got a top race that probably leaves him a little light, but he's not, totally overmatched by these horses, I don't think.
The 13 is an AE, and it looks like he's a little bit class compromised, 5-0 somewhere. He would need a career best effort in some of these horses, probably to take a big step back. Let's take a look at our top picks for the sprint. I'm not sure I want to have a lot of money in this race. I do think Cogburn's the best horse. Do I trust that he's going to run that last race back over this quirky course? No. So I'm probably going to watch it. Groom's All Business is an interesting alternative, Mike.
Yeah, I thought so. He was really the only one. I wanted to give him just a little chance to do it. I do think he's going to be a good price in here. I like the form that he's in right now. Cogburn, obviously going to win this thing with his best race. I can take one small shot against him at Kentucky Down.
If No Balls goes off at 6-1, I would use him. And I always liked One Timer. I think maybe he gets lost in the shuffle with some of the big names in here. You could use One Timer if you think that Cogburn will stub his toe on this course. 7-4-1-10 for Mike, 4-3-10-5 for me. Nice matchup. Cogburn against No Balls in the turf sprint to Kentucky Downs. Big Saturday afternoon racing. Good luck.